there's a Swahili saying that a beggar does not have any honor.
Of course.
You know, if you are in a position that, and Thomas Sankara rightfully puts it, and I will never tire repeating it, that whoever feeds you controls you. When we have projects that have been funded by the United States of America in Africa, when we have military bases within African countries belonging to the British, when we have currencies which are still controlled, the CFA franc, which are still being controlled by the French in West African and Central African countries, then it becomes a challenge, you know, for them to wage substantial affiliation, you know, and form a formidable pact with any other formation.
Until Africans, and especially the African leaders, those who are now holding office right now, because they represent the ideas of the majority and the opinion of the majority, until they stand strong and say this, hey, we are not going to be dictated by whatever ideologies and political standpoints that you have from wherever you're coming from. Absolutely. If we feel like we can do business with you, we can do business with you, irrespective of whether you are a friend of my enemy or you're an enemy of my friend.
Absolutely.
So if it's high time that we need to, it needs to. And if there is any other nation or any other organization from outside there that will think that Africa now is towards BRICS, Africa now is moving away from NATO, you know, that is a mind of a failed. Of a failure, you are afraid of the unseen, and Mr. Rotich, I just stand strongly believing that the global South is rising.
You know, it comes from a point of what happens to the other African countries. Ethiopia tells us now we have a problem with the West. Now this the way to go, and Kenya comes to mind when we talk about such allegiances, because the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, has been going everywhere. You know, the other day he was in the United States of America. Next is in Russia. Next is saying the dollar is not the way to go. We have to change it to the dollarize our economies as African countries. But next we see him with very senior personnel, you know, from the other Western countries. So we have that challenge, because how then is Africa going to form a formidable pact with anyone if they are not united?
As BRICS, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, continues to expand and assert its influence on the global stage, African nations are poised to reap a significant economic benefit. However, this newfound opportunity also presents challenges requiring a careful balance between economic growth and, of course, geopolitical considerations. Now, these and many more join me even as going to delve into these particular matters, trying to find out where does Africa stand as far as this newfound affiliation is concerned. And joining me in this particular studio, this particular moment, is a very good friend of mine who is going to help me deliberate on these particular matters.
Thank you very much, Sherlock. I'm Rotich David, a lawyer by profession, and I will be rightfully delving into the issue of BRICS and trying to see what Africa will be benefiting in this newfound alliance.
Very true, very true, very true. Now, having said that one, you also, as our viewers, our beloved viewers, don't forget to give us that particular thumbs up, and of course, don't forget to drop us your comments on the comment section, even as we are moving through. We want to see what exactly you think of this particular newfound, affiliation, this kind of kumbaya, come together and sing together, where it is really leading us. Now, to jumpstart our show, I'm also going to read a couple of few things here so that we see ourselves looking forward into it. Now, international developments have shown that the shortcomings of the current international systems are not limited to political and security issues. Now, of course, but extend to economic and development issues. And this has been reiterated and echoed by some of new members who are eyeing a position in this particular big BRICS platform. And that's none other than Egypt, Ethiopia,
Argentina is a new kid in the block. We also have UAE and Saudi Arabia.
And even Turkey.
Yes.
What does Africa stand to benefit from this particular kind of a cooperation, a camp together, kumbaya kind of a thing?
Yes, absolutely, Sherlock. When you look at the situation that Africa is at the moment, we are witnessing the menace, which is a huge debt that countries are not even in a position to pay. We are witnessing the balance of trade disequilibrium because we are using the dollars as a mode of exchange for international trade. So when BRICS comes on board and says that we are now willing, to have more friendly terms when it comes to economics, diplomacy, and other geopolitical issues as an ally to African states, then African states are given a new lease of hope. That's what Ethiopia is going for. That's what South Africa is going for. They are saying that the West countries have been perpetuating, inequalities when it comes to trade, when it comes to imports and exports between African states and them. So they're saying it's now a new time for us to shift our allegiance to the new kid in the block, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Yes.
Now, to me, I feel like there is an ulterior motive. It's not just like, hey, Ethiopia all of a sudden is excited over this particular idea. I would refer to that one as zealous ignorance. Given the fact that Africa itself does not have this particular uniformity as far as, let's say, for example, the affiliations are concerned. You look at Africa as 54 fragments. And that tells you the reason as to why there is no any idea that is going to be materialized. Now, Ethiopia, to me, and the other, new members who are vibrant, so excited about the whole idea of BRICS, I think it is that they're muscling up, or they're taking a very weak stance against the big players in the field, like trying to show them, hey, we can do things in our own. And Ethiopia stands not to be really, like it doesn't buy any of the Western ideas, especially from the US.
Yes.
And given the fact that recently it has been engaged or found itself, to struggling with security issues itself, it has got some issues that Ethiopia has to maybe work itself up with. But I think usually Ethiopia also sees that one as, you see, there's a Western kind of an input. There's a hand that, as playing in, that sees Ethiopia not having that particular, ultimate peace. And now Ethiopia coming in, it's coming in as like a payback kind of a thing. You know what? NATO and the rest of the UN has failed, to advocate its mandate. These wars are moving on. We try to talk to them, and they're not doing anything. And that is
absolutely. And I think, to a very good extent, Ethiopia seems to be justified in their undertakings, and also taking into consideration the recent developments in Ethiopia, where they were forced by the International Monetary Fund to float their currency. Ethiopia has been having one of the strongest currencies in Africa, simply because the currency is not readily available for exchange. So they have been forced by the IMF recently to float it. Because they have debts with the IMF. And one of the justifications that these new players in the BRICS are fronting is the fact that IMF is controlled by the Western powers. The United States of America determines who gets what, in the International Monetary Fund. And this comes, at the time where African countries have been complaining, even when it comes to the ratios and the justifications that are fronted and are given so that you can be given a loan. There are a lot of thresholds for you to be given a loan by the IMF that you have to fulfill. One of them is your contributions to the UN. To the World Bank. Leading, is the United States of America, giving around 25%. African states are giving around 0.something%, all of them. That's one of them. Another consideration is the issue of foreign reserves, the issue of openness to trade. So when they look at a country like Ethiopia, which is not willing to float their currency, then they take it as in limiting, liberalism when it comes to trade, doing business. So they are rebelling, against these players, the old players. They have been here, they have been oppressing African countries, and they are saying now we are willing to negotiate with other people who are willing to come with to the table with better terms for the African states. Yes.
And that one has hit me hard.
Yeah.
That even the Western countries like the French, the colonies of France, they had to be for their currencies that they had to have a reserve with the French. It was called the Pact for the continuation of neocolonialism.
Absolutely.
That they have but those particular reserves that you've already said. To some extent, when, let's say, for example, a country fails to meet this particular threshold, even as you've put them, then that country is posed as an enemy to the West.
Yes.
And I think Ethiopia, as you just said, yes, rightfully, has some stance to say that no, the West plus its associations which are maybe posed to maybe put in place to help those particular developed countries and underdeveloped countries, they are not really working. Their measures, their mechanisms are not really working. They need to give a fresh try of new things in town.
Absolutely, and even they are saying the Ahmed Abiy, the PM for Ethiopia, was saying that BRICS gives us a chance, at achieving the Vision 2063 for Africa. They are saying that the economic inequities that we are facing now can be handled more effectively when we have new affiliations, to BRICS when as compared to the Western countries. And I think they are coming from a genuine point of view. But it's very prudent for us, Sherlock, to look at the challenges that comes with these affiliations. Because where are the other African countries?
Exactly, that is where I was headed next.
Yes.
Don't you think that this is like a betray kind of a thing?
Yes.
Given the fact that the politics of Africa, they have proven that we have got divided loyalties when it comes to, let's say, for example, any extensions of help from outside. We've got the West, and the West, when I say the West, is of course the global North, and versus the global South. And of recently realized that its, let's say, for example, interests are now divided towards the Russia and India, Brazil, and now they're forgetting maybe the Americans and the UK and the Britain.
Yes.
Does that now, Mr. Rotich, does that, don't you think that it brings a kind of a challenge for Africa to navigate diligently so that they do not maybe aggravate the other party? Because it'll be like, oh, we've helped you to do these particular advancements. You've done this one, this particular development so far so good. You've been our good, loyal allies. All of a sudden now you want to bring somebody on board. Don't you think that one is going to find Africa at crossroads?
It will, Sherlock, because there's a Swahili saying that a beggar does not have any honor.
Of course.
If you are in a position that, and Thomas Sankara rightfully puts it, and I will never tire repeating that whoever feeds you controls you. When we have projects that have been funded by the United States of America in Africa, when we have military bases within African countries belonging to the British, when we have currencies which are still controlled, the CFA franc, which are still being controlled by the French in West African and Central African countries, then it becomes a challenge, for them to wage a substantial affiliation, and form a formidable pact with any other formation like the BRICS. Because the question therefore becomes, if South Africa, for instance, says we are going to merge with to join BRICS and even they have been members for some time now. But if they are going to say that we are going to strengthen our allegiance because we are supporting Palestine, because we are saying Palestine needs to be recognized as an independent state, we have to end the tactful genocide that is being meted against the citizens of Palestine by Israel, and the West are doing nothing, but Russia and the other members of the BRICS are not allies of the NATO, so they are not supporting Israel. So, it comes from a point of what happens to the other African countries. Ethiopia tells us now we have a problem with the West. Now this is the way to go, and Kenya comes to mind when we talk about such allegiances, because the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, has been going everywhere. The other day he was in the United States of America. Next is in Russia. Next is saying the dollar is not the way to go. We have to change it to the dollarize our economies as African countries.
Yes.
But next, we see him with very senior personnel, you know, from the other Western countries.
Yeah.
So we have that challenge, because how then is Africa going to form a formidable pact with anyone if they are not united?
This is my take. On the same note as how is Africa going to to form those particular pacts as a step moving forward? I think there shouldn't be anybody with any upper opinion about on who you should be doing business and who you should not be doing business with. Now, if it comes to a point whereby you are controlled, by some people out there on who you were supposed to be doing business and who you're not supposed to be doing business with, then it means that you don't exist. You are a puppet.
Yes. And that's very true, because now, seeing as the majority of the resources are at the hands of the global south. You know, they have the skilled labor, they have the population, they have all it takes, you know, to build a formidable, economic front.
Yes.
But I agree with you on a lot of things, including the fact that for Africa really to make an impact when it comes to these pacts and these coalitions, then we have to factor in the issue of the concern of having the Organization of African States, the AU, the current African Union, not being a toothless dog. We need to have a front where that the African states are united. They have one united economic front that they can negotiate for deals together.
Yes.
They work towards having one currency. They work towards having one militarized, organization that they can do everything, together, no passports, open up the borders, so that, especially when it comes to the point of negotiation, we have to negotiate as a united front. If Kenya, for instance, has the leeway of going to negotiate for a deal alone, independently, then to a very good extent, it's consideration whether what about the other African states will be jeopardized. And I think having a united Africa is the way, to go, even if we are to go for such allegiances.
Kind of allegiances. Yes. It is this iconic leader from Africa. She's the former ambassador of Africa in the US, Dr. Chiombori Kwao. Yeah. She was talking of what exactly you just touched right now of, you see, economically, the way Africa has been, strategized to economically maybe trying to muscle itself against the other big economic players out there, it is really not working. It's not relevant. You cannot have an economy like, for example, Malawi or Lesotho, for example, and then Lesotho cannot have a bargaining power with China.
Absolutely.
What does Lesotho have that brings on the table that China will have to listen to? If China itself, its economy is several times that of all these particular
African states, even the population itself.
Even the population itself. And that's why the Global South, now that one now brings me to this particular very point, that the Global South, the BRICS, the members, the individual members, the reason as to why the West will be scared, they have to stand really scared and afraid of what exactly is going on. It makes up of more than 50% of the world population.
Absolutely.
And
Brazil has a very humongous population. India has
China.
A huge population.
China. And this really provides, let's say, for example, the market, the ready market for the finished product. So the only thing that needs to be done here is Africa to realize this particular opportunity and go for it. Even as I'd said previously that Africa stands to reap greatly and massively from this, but it must make its position stand.
Absolutely.
And stand for what exactly it means. And again, that one also brings to the very point that I said, you do not have to dictate terms to who I can do business with and to who I cannot do business with. If I feel like the terms are okay, I can do business with Russia.
With anyone.
So long as I feel like I can do business with them.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to
and the terms are favorable to you.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And that's now brings us to very almost towards the end of this particular. Now, if you followed up to this very end, you also stand a chance to contribute and tell us what exactly you think, and of course your comments would be appreciated of what needs to be done, especially when it comes to Africa and its matters. Does Africa stand a chance when it comes to global platform, if when it divided or when it is united? Of course, I love to finish with this particular refrain that, unity. When we're united, we are able to do what? We are able to do the great things only when you're united. But if we are with these particular fragments before member states, we're likely to be defeated. And of course, that is how it has been, choreographed. I would want to say that it is usually choreographed because how are we like this? Why do we have imaginary borders? Why don't I have to cross to Uganda without feeling that I've just moved to Uganda and that I'm just within, the backyard of my home? Now, that and very more. Stay tuned until we meet in the next episode. Stay tuned.
Thank you.